good afternoon, everyone. Let me go to my slides. Let's get to the lesson proper. Good afternoon. Welcome to this Art of Maneuvering 1. It's actually a trilogy. So there'll be AOM 1, 2, and 3. 3, we are not running this year. Okay, but if you really want to go for the 3, you can always lock in the on-demand video. Okay, then next year come back for the live online class again. Yeah, if not this year, we only run AOM1 and AOM2. AOM is, in short, means Art of Maneuvering, called AOM1 and 2. Okay, so before I start, that's some admin instructions. There are 3 as usual. Number 1, all of you will be muted except me. Number 2, the chat box is on the right side. So whatever comments, questions, statements, opinion, whatsoever, all type into the right box. Yeah. And last but not least, the entire session will be recorded so that after the program, you'll be sent for processing and then uploaded to the training portal as well as the community platform. Have you all joined the community platform? Okay, if not, do join because that gives you the another avenue of what I call that, watching the video again. And also, if you have questions regarding AOM, you can go to the community platform to post your question. Yeah. Okay. So let's move on. Now, if you look at these 4 person in this slides here, you know 4 of them. How many of these 4 do you know? Number 1, Thomas Edison. Number 2, James Dyson. Number 3, Abraham Lincoln. And number 4, Colonel Harlan Sanders. How many of these 4 do you know? Know them, Okay, Lin, good. Paul say all, Good, good, good. Now, let me ask you this. If I were to ask you to look at them and then pull out one common theme that we can say about them, which is true, what would that be? My question, if you look at them, and if I ask you to extract out one common theme that applies to each one of them, what would that be? What do you think? Famous, okay, famous, very good, famous. Thomas Edison, very famous. James Dyson, in recent years, very famous. Abraham Lincoln has been famous for many years. Colonel Harlan Sanders, up to now, still famous. Yeah, they are known for certain things, lah. Right? Any other thing besides famous? Probably just famous lah. Everybody know them lah. Popular, famous, not really popular, but famous, well known, successful. Good point. Successful. Thomas Edison, successful scientist. James Dyson, a successful entrepreneur or business owners. Abraham Lincoln, successful president. And Colonel Harlan Sanders, successful business owner as well. So yeah, successful, famous, successful. Now let me give you the next slides. Yeah, the common theme that applies across these 4 person and in fact across all successful people is this: visible success, invisible failures. The yin yang comes out. What they show to other people around them are their visible success. Okay, but what they don't usually show to other people is were their invisible failures. Isn't this the same for everyone and every other successful people? They will just show in the public their visible success, but they will just try to mute it down their invisible failures. So remember this, there are always 2 sides of the same coin. Okay, so when you see people being successful, being seem to be successful, behind them, there's always invisible failures. These are what is the common thread that cut across all successful people. Okay, so for example, Thomas Edison, although he was famous for inventing the light bulb, but he failed over 10,000 times, right, before finally getting on to the commercially viable electric bulb. That is Thomas Edison. Sir James Dyson went through 5,000 plus failed prototypes. Good afternoon, Alan. Just in time. Okay, so for James Dyson, went through 5,000 over failed prototypes before coming out with the backless vacuum cleaner that we know now, very famous. I think almost in every household you see the cordless vacuum cleaner belongs to Dyson. Then Abraham Lincoln, um, he was before he was the president, he was a captain. Okay, went out to war as a captain, but come back after the war as a private. So to him, that was sort of a disgrace. Okay, to went out as a captain but come back as a private. So to him, this is an invisible failure. So for Colonel Harlan Sanders, was famously rejected by 1,000 plus restaurant before one agreed to his KFC ideas. Right. So you see, all successful people have these common traits. So if you want to be successful, then you must also be prepared for the invisible failures, because this is the law of nature. Okay, and what we are trying to study today is the law of nature. Yeah. So in short, behind every success we call the yang, okay, success, there are always failures called the yin. So yin and yang is always going hand in hand. Right. So if you hear anybody telling you that follow them, follow their method, they can guarantee you success each and every time, don't listen to them, because according to the law of nature, there's no such thing as 100% 包家 one. Okay. But if they are humble enough to tell you that maybe only 98% success, but there will be 2% failure, then maybe can, because this is yin and yang. Okay, so there are many more such eating principles or the law of natures that successful people know, but they are not sharing enough. Right. So with that, that is why I thought of, hey, why not I come up with this program based on eating and from the perspective of eating, and say, hey, if you want to be successful in your own way, in your own right, then these are the few laws of nature that you should understand and apply in your life. Okay, so what we'll go through in this program, AOM1, 3 lessons, it will be a heavy dose of paradox. When I say paradox, means it seems this, but it's actually that. Or it's the yin-yang manner kind of paradox. This kind of heavy dose of paradox will be used throughout this entire program. Okay, so with that, if you know the law of natures and the principles that runs behind the scene, then we can always use eating principles to thrive even during difficult times. And this is very crucial because if you look around us, things has been getting more and more hotter, not only the weather, but in terms of the tension, the friction, the conflicts, the flashpoint is getting higher and higher. Okay, so if everybody can just understand eating and practice eating in their life towards themselves and towards others, I think this globe, this world will be a very peaceful global village. Let's spread these words of the true wisdom of eating. So all these law of natures are actually captured in this classic called eating, and I do all the heavy lifting I what do you call that, digest all these law of nature and principles into AOM1 and AOM2. Okay, so the 64 hexagrams of the eating, I break it down into digestible chunks, and I share it out in AOM1, AOM2. Now, what about AOM3? So AOM3 is how to make use of AOM1 and AOM2, things that you have learned in 1 and 2, and convert them into 36 stratagem. Okay, 36 stratagem in Chinese, the 36计. Okay, so whenever you come into any unique situation, you can always cast a gua, and based on that gua, convert it and find a relevant stratagem, and then you use the stratagem, apply it into the situation, and make your next best move forward. So basically, this is what AOM trilogy is all about. As the name implies, it's the art of maneuvering. So it helps you to see your lives and circumstances in a very powerful yin yang way. That's number one. And number two, understand the universal principles that actually run behind the scene of every situation that you are in, so that you can strategically plan your next best move. Okay. So for AOM, specifically AOM 1, one. I mean this program, this 3 weeks program, I break it out into 3 parts. Part 1, which is today, is we'll go through the untold framework of the universe. That means before we go into the what do you call that? The 64 hexagram one by one, I just want to give you an overarching framework of this universe. What is this universe, and how it works? Okay, what's the mechanism behind things? The universe. And once we are okay already, that means we most likely we're done with part 1 already. Then we move on to part 2, which is tomorrow. We go into the 6 dragons. Okay, 6 dragons. Basically, these are the 6 phases of life that every one of us will go through, right? So after that, next week, the last lesson, we'll move on into the first 12 hexagram. Eating that 64 hexagram, if I were to talk everything, every one of the 64 hexagram, I don't think 3 lessons will be enough, right? So therefore, in order to make things simple for everyone, AOM1 just focus on the first 12. Why the first 12 and not the rest, and not 15, not 20? Is because based on my experience and based on my study and research, I find that the first 12 hexagram forms the very basic cycle of every situation. As long as you can understand this first cycle, the up and down of any situation, very clearly, this first cycle, which is the first 12 hexagram, when we move on to AOM2, you'll notice that how come the cycle keeps repeating? That means you see shadow of the first 12 hexagram over and over and over again in subsequent cycles. Basically meaning hexagram 13 all the way to hexagram 64. So instead of pushing you all through, rushing you all through the 64 hexagram, if you can lay down the very good firm foundation for the first 12 hexagram, the rest should not be a problem. Okay, so that's how I split up the AOM1 and 2 lah. AOM1 the first 12 and AOM2 the remaining of the 64 hexagram. Why so many in AOM2 is because they keep repeating, but in just different form, shape, and sizes. That's all. But the underlying principles are all there. It's the same. Okay, so this is what we're going to cover in AOM1, part 1, part 2, part 3. Part 1 is the untold framework of the universe. Part 2 is the 6th dragon. And part 3 is staying successful after becoming successful. Right? So basically, once you go through this, you are able to do, okay, what the empowered do that others don't. Right? So once again, welcome to this AOM1. I think I don't have to introduce myself. I think I'll skip that. Anyway, if you don't know who I am, my name is Kun Leong. Okay, so I think I'll skip this. Now, disclaimer. At the end of today's lesson or this program, even though all of you are looking at the same me, hearing from me the same, looking at the same slides, having the same workbook, at the end of the program, the level of understanding will differ from person to person. Why? Because number one, it depends on your level of understanding of the various fundamentals, concepts, and the techniques. Number two, your circle of competence in that subject matter. And number three, the time you devote to training practices. Now, what is there to train and practice for AOM? Plentiful. Plentiful. If you can understand eating, understand the principles, and whenever you encounter in, a situation, you try to ask yourself, what gua am I in right now? Okay, if you can identify the gua that you are in right now, you can always refer back to the gua and then seek some insights and guidance how you should maneuver out of that situation safely. Okay, so every time I start a class, I have 2 rules. Let me share with them what are two. Share with you what are 2 rules. Number 1, don't believe a thing I say. If we talk about hexagrams, different masters looking at the same hexagram will tell you different thing. But that doesn't mean that some of them should be right, some of them should be wrong. It can turn out that all the masters, whatever they say, are correct. Okay, because this is how powerful eating is, and how wide-ranging eating can be, is that whatever the master says about the hexagram can be correct in their own ways of explanation. So whatever I'm going to tell you in this program, AOM 1, 2, and 3 are all my experiences and experiences of my students and clients, and they are not yet yours. So my take to you is listen with a open mindset, try out for yourself. If it doesn't work, feel free to throw it out the window. If it works, then that makes your experience. Okay, so this is number one. Don't believe a thing I say. And number two, learn with a growth mindset. You may have learned eating elsewhere. You may have learned all the philosophy verses of eating from books, from YouTube, or from other masters. Never mind. Like I say, different masters will give you a different angle to eating, and they can be correct. Okay, so just listen to this AOM1 with a growth mindset. Who knows? Maybe you may pick up something that is an aha moment for you. Yeah. So only these two rules. Okay. Not many, only these two. So with that, are you ready to get started? Type a yes in the chat box if you are. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Paul. Okay, good. Let me move on. All right. So today we're going to cover these three modules: module 1, 2, and 3. Module 1 is ABC of a life journey, a broad perspective. Number 2, what do you call that? Seeing beyond the frame. And number 3, eating and the principles of daily living. Okay, so let's move on to module 1, the ABC of a life journey, a broad perspective. Now, before I